Greg Jennings is back with us. We should mention the Steelers do get James Conner back, which should help in the run game. But this is an offense that clearly has an identity crisis, Greg. Would you place that blame on Ben Roethlisberger?
Me personally, I would not. I look at what he said, and number one, I credit Ben because this has not been his MO throughout his career, just taking ownership and literally putting blame on himself. But when you look at the way they play the game, yes, do they need to run the ball? Yes, they do. Do they dink and dunk? They do, but they've established themselves as a horizontal passing game threat, which is an extension of the running game. And that's how you possess the ball. You get your defense on the field, they give you the ball back because they create a ton of turnovers and you possess the ball. They're third in the league in time of possession. It accounts for something. And when you talk about RPOs, when your running game is not working, it wasn't called RPOs when I was playing. We just had pass run plays. And if Aaron or Brett looked up and saw an opportunity where they can get a receiver the ball really quick and he can get 4, 5, 6 yards because he has one defender in front of him versus handing a ball off in the running game and knowing your running game has stunk, that's what a quarterback's going to do. It's not their job. It's on the offensive coordinator to either call a designed run, period, and have the quarterback stick to that, or just allow them to have the freedom that Ben has had to make the option. And if you're any quarterback and your running game has struggled, you're not going to turn around and hand it off, especially when your starting running back is not in the backfield.
Greg, I think it's 100% on Big Ben. They've been having this identity crisis for a couple of weeks, and here's why. With Greg, everything you talked about from a RPO, run-pass option, you're 100% on the mark there. But there's two different conversations here. There's RPO, which you just walked us through, and then there's also Big Ben. What I'm hearing, he is changing the plays. Offensive coordinator calls a play. Big Ben calls a run play, checks out of it, go to a pass play, excuse me. Mike Tomlin looking down at the OC. What are you doing? I called the run. Big Ben is literally changing plays. That's what I'm hearing. Now, RPO, totally different situation. Now, when you line up, let's say we go I right, we got X backside, weak side linebacker. Okay, if this weak side linebacker stays back, 5, 6 yards deep, I'm going to hand it off to James Conner. If this guy presses the line of scrimmage, now I'm going to throw it over his head. That's RPO, run pass option. Now, quarterback, he can buck the system and still not key in on his read and throw it when he's not supposed to, but that's neither here nor there. You just get graded down after the game. Big Ben is changing the plays at the line of scrimmage. You don't go from being one of the most balanced offenses, undefeated teams throughout the first 6, 7 weeks, and now, Greg, they're not running it at all. How do you go from one end of the spectrum to the other? Kevin, I don't get it. Big Ben, I don't know if he's putting his ego and what he wants before the team's success, but he needs to check his ego because he has a great thing right here in his hands. He has a great defense, and he has a running game that is actually efficient.
Okay, here's what I'm going to do a prop comedy here. This was everyone sharpening their knives after Thanksgiving. They carved the turkey like, I can't wait to take this knife and jam it into the undefeated Steelers. They're 11-1, Brandon. They still have the bye. They're your pick. So before we get too fired up, are you abandoning your pick because Ben Roethlisberger's like, you know what, Snell? You're not running too well. I'm going to throw the ball. Are you willing to abandon your pick?
No, but Big Ben, isn't it interesting that all of a sudden after one loss, these reports come out? You know what I see? I see an organization that's been frustrated with Big Ben and waiting for this opportunity to say, you know what, boom, here's why we've been struggling the last couple weeks on offense, Nick. That's what I see. No, I'm not abandoning it. They can fix this. They need to just get back to balancing out this offense and fixing this identity issue, and it starts with Big Ben and his ego.
And here, Wilds, is why this is a big deal and a big story. Because while I disagree with Brandon Marshall that every team in the league should be evaluated on the standard of win a Super Bowl or it's a failure, there are a few teams each year where that is the standard. And the Steelers are one of them. And so they're going to be evaluated under, is what they're doing going to lead to playoff success, a deep playoff run, or is the record something of a mirage? And I would argue the record is something of a mirage. Here's the best way I could put it. Take the Ravens, who are 7-5. What do you think the Ravens' record would be if they got to play Carson Wentz and the Eagles' passing offense every single week? Might be undefeated. Well, guess what? The Steelers' defense turned the opposing team's quarterback into Carson Wentz in that offense every week. They're number one in sacks. They're number one in interceptions. They're allowing a passer rating of 74. You put up that next to Wentz this year, has been the worst quarterback in football. They're almost identical. So the defense has been carrying the water here, and the offense actually has been holding them back. My question is it an identity crisis if it's who you've been for almost a decade? Show America the numbers.
That's right.
When the Steelers were winning Super Bowls, they were one thing. The last decade, they've been something else. So Ben looks different, Nick. But you know what also looks different? How often they pass, Greg. They used to pass less than any team in football. Now they pass more than anybody except for 3 or 4 teams. And this is who they are. Now, you can argue it's who you should be when you have Big Ben, and over this time you've had all those great receivers. I get that. I understand that argument. But this, Greg, this is who the Steelers, most notably, who Big Ben wants to be and wants them to be. And so I don't think it's an identity crisis. I think it's who they want, who he wants them to be.
You're exactly right. When I look at this team, they've allowed Big Ben Roethlisberger to cook, like you said, for over a decade. Yeah. Similar to what we saw early in the season with Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks. They saw that recipe was kind of a disaster. It wasn't completely, but it was like, wait, let's pull back the reins. Let's try to get this balance back in this game, because that's who we've always been, and that's what has afforded us success. The Pittsburgh Steelers need to get back to that. That's why I say it's not on solely Ben Roethlisberger.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.